104.5 The Team, your home for New York sports, getting the bracket covered from every angle. The man who covers college hoops for the mothership, ESPN. Eamon Brennon with us. Eamon, what team impressed you the most yesterday?
I would probably say, with the possible exception of Middle Tennessee, maybe St. Mary's. Because I think St. Mary's is a team that I have made an intellectual argument for pretty often this season, and that I have sort of expected on three separate occasions against Gonzaga to really go give them a game, whether in Moraga or Spokane or at the West Coast tournament. And sort of every time they've had it, which hasn't been often, granted, but every time they've had a chance to really prove how good they are against Gonzaga, which is really, really good, Gonzaga goes out and says, no, we're way better. And so St. Mary's, I think, is a team that it's difficult to get behind, even if you sort of intellectually believe that they are really good. And so the way they played yesterday against VCU, which is a decent, pretty good team, a pretty strong, above-average team, really gives me some confidence about how they may show against Arizona, which is unquestionably a more talented team, but I don't know if I'd be willing to go to the mattresses on. Arizona is definitely better than St. Mary's. I think we could argue that back and forth based on numbers and record and competition and who Arizona's got now and all that stuff. I just think it's more of a discussion, and I think it'll be interesting to see on Sunday. On Saturday.
Oh, I'm sorry. You brought up Middle Tennessee State. Now, I know they were the 12 and Minnesota was the 5, but we were out live yesterday, and I think I was the only person rooting for Minnesota. Like, you could have easily flipped those seedings, and nobody would have noticed the difference, would they?
No, yeah, it's an odd one because, this season, I think Minnesota was better. There weren't too many, whether it was the BPI or KenPom.com or whatever else, certainly the RPI and general resume that would have said that Minnesota wasn't better than Middle Tennessee on the merits. But for whatever reason, the combination of, they beat Michigan State last year, people just not having as much faith in Minnesota because they're kind of a surprise team that got to the tournament without anyone really expecting it. Whatever the case, Middle Tennessee opened or tipped off yesterday. They didn't open, but by tip-off, they had gotten to a 1-point favorite in Vegas, which that does not usually happen for 12-5 games. That's not how it's supposed to work. And honestly, they played like it. They played great.
Eamon Brennon joining us right now on 104.5 The Team.
So technically, Middle Tennessee State wasn't an upset yesterday. They were the favorite in the game. Why was there such why was there such a lack of upsets overall in day one of the round of 64?
I think it's just circumstance. It's just 16 basketball games being played at various times at various parts of places across the country, and you sit down and you kind of absorb them all at once. I come up to Bristol, Connecticut every year and watch from our quote unquote war room, and we got a big bank of TVs, and you can kind of see everything that's going on. And not all that much of it is really related to each other. It's you kind of look for patterns, but it's like looking for constellations. They're not really there, but you can imagine that they are. And yesterday, I it just things kind of shook out where there were always good games. There were no real blowouts of more than 20 points. I don't think there was a single game that ended in more than a 20-point margin. But there were also no underdogs of greater than 2 points to win for the first time since 2000. So it was sort of, teams kept it close. There were, there were some reachable margins. Everyone was kind of in the game, and then the better team would eventually kind of pull away and finish things off down the stretch, and that was pretty much that. And that seemed to happen pretty much all day after Notre Dame and Virginia got by in the early session, with the exception of Vanderbilt and Northwestern. That was pretty much the entire day.
Villanova and Gonzaga at one point in the second half was a single-digit game. Any reasons to fear those top seeds possibly getting upset in the round of 32?
I don't think so. I mean, I know a lot of people have mentioned Wisconsin as a potential, that being a really tough number 8 seed for Villanova, and I agree because Wisconsin's a good team, and with all due respect to the Wildcats, I don't think they belong on the same seed line as Northwestern. But I think the matchups, as you could argue that they work against Wisconsin, or you could argue they work against Villanova with size. I could argue the same way with Wisconsin. I think Villanova can really stretch that team out, really make Nigel Hayes guard 25 feet from the rim. The same with Ethan Happ. There doesn't need to be a sort of low down, down low matchup issue for them because they can just pull everyone away from the rim. I think it's just as tough a matchup for Wisconsin as the other way around. And Gonzaga, I'm not too worried about. That looks like the classic number 1 seed, awkward, like first 30 minutes of a game against the number 16 seed when you can't really get your arms around how bad the other team is, and then you kind of figure it out and you just go dunk a few times. And I think they'll ease into the tournament pretty well.
Eamon Brennon, he covers college hoops for the Mothership. Joining us right now on 104.5 The Team. So coming up today, are there any upsets you're calling out already?
Oh, boy. I don't have a ton of upsets in my bracket in general. Wichita State is a 6.5-point favorite over Dayton. That's not an upset either.
Right.
But I do think the Shockers will win. Rhode Island over Creighton. It's not a really big upset. I do have Oklahoma State over Michigan, which to me doesn't feel like all that much of an upset. But the way Michigan played and sort of the public support that they've gotten, I don't know what the line is for that game or anything like that, but it does feel like because they were such a big story during Champ Week, they've gotten sort of a boost in terms of, this team's going to go deep into the tournament. I have Oklahoma State winning that, which I don't know. Maybe that's heartless of me, but I just think the Cowboys are going to kind of run that one. It's a bad matchup for Michigan with a team that can really score it and that doesn't really care if you come back down the other way and score because they just get it out and go.
That would destroy my Final Four.
I'm really sorry. There's nothing worse than that. Like I put West Virginia in the Final Four, and they were kind of in a little bit of a tight one yesterday,
right?
Against Bucknell, and Bucknell had a wide open three to kind of cut the lead. I think 3 or 4 in the second half, and Elijah Macon, their big guy, sort of just jogged, like it was a transition 3, and he was the last guy back on defense, and they threw kind of a cross-court pass, and he just jogged to the corner and didn't put his hand up and just let the Bucknell dudes shoot it. And I just I might as well have been Bob Huss. I just erupted, just screaming at him like, "What are you doing? That's lazy!" Screaming, and all these people in my office are like doing actual work and are like, "What is wrong with this dude?"
Eamon Brennan, we appreciate your help. And now, of course, with a great name like that on a day like today on St. Patrick's Day, are all your coworkers going, "Where are we going? What are we doing?" Are you honorary leader of the group today?
I wish I could say that I was, but honestly, this happens every year during the tournament. I haven't had an actual proper St. Patrick's Day since I started doing college basketball full time. It's a real shame because it's a fun day. Although it depends on where you are. Some places it can be a little too fun, a little too New Year's Eve amateur hour sometimes.
Yeah, you got to get out early and then hide late. That's my rule.
Absolutely.
All right, Eamon, we appreciate you, and I hope your bracket goes well, except for that whole Oklahoma State Michigan thing.
Fair enough. Have a good one, guys.
You too. Thanks so much for your help, man.
All right. Bye-bye.